If your waves or curls have gone limp, drooped, or look frizzy, don't worry, you don't need to completely start over. I'm going to show you how to refresh to bring your curls and waves back to life so that way you don't have to completely rewash. My name is Gina and welcome back to my channel. Here we talk all things naturally curly. I love simplifying things and doing these step-by-step tutorials, and I love helping my curl coaching clients problem solve through my group coaching membership. I obviously have curly hair, but I have learned so much from my wavy hair clients, and I really know about all of their struggles, especially when it comes to their waves and loose curls falling limp and getting looser throughout the week, which is completely normal. But please keep in mind that you don't have to have perfect waves and curls every single day. It's just not realistic. So let's get started. We first have to understand why waves and curls go limp after wash day. It is completely normal for your waves and loose curls to loosen up as the days go on because there is gravity at play and we can't work magic and just freeze our curls in a certain position. They're naturally going to fall some throughout the week, and you have to learn to accept how they look throughout the week and try and get them up to that full potential that they have for that particular day. The first one is a big one, and that is a lack of hold from your wash day routine. You have to have enough hold in your hair. Hold is that crunch or the cast and that frizz control that you get out of your styling products. Sleeping without proper sleep protection is a big one. We will cover sleep protection in just a little bit, so stay tuned for that. And if you are still transitioning from damage, if you're still growing out damage in your hair, that is going to take time, and just know it does get better. You have to be patient with it, and you're going to notice that your refreshes get a lot easier as your hair gets healthier. Here's how to proceed with your refresh based on different signs and symptoms. If your curls are very loosened up, if they're falling limp and they don't have their usual curl or wave pattern, then you're going to need water, a little bit of styling, and diffusing. If your hair is feeling very dry, brittle, and stiff, then you might need to add in a little bit of a leave-in conditioner or a light serum to refresh. If your hair is feeling overly soft and looking very frizzy, then you're going to need to add in some sort of holding product such as a gel, mousse, or a hairspray. Unless if the gel or styler that you used on wash day had enough hold, and when you add water you start to feel that cast come back, then you can skip adding additional product and you might be able to just use water to reactivate that product in your hair. Here's what I used on my wash day and what my hair assessment is. So I tested out this brand new product from Cake. It's the Curlfriend Curl Shape and Stay Gel to Foam Mousse. On this label, it basically says that it has the high hold definition of a gel and the volumizing flake-free finish of a foam. So you would think that this could be used as a one and done styler, but this didn't give my hair any hold at all. Unfortunately, I find that to be the case with a lot of products, and I could tell it wasn't going to give my hair hold because when I looked at the ingredients, I didn't really see any holding ingredients at the top, but I did all of my best strong hold practices while using this. I made sure to use plenty of it and I still didn't get a cast, so that tells me it's the product that was the problem. So if you have loose curls and waves and you don't use enough hold, your hair is definitely not going to retain its shape. It has nothing to hold on to. It's going to fall even more. I can put up a photo of how my hair looked if you want to see how it looked on day 2 and day 3, and I wanted to actually loosen up my hair in order to film this video, so I slicked it back in a bun to where I could actually demonstrate how to refresh. I have more of that 3A type of curl type, so I don't experience it as much, but I know so many of you do, so that's why I wanted to do this, and so that's why I purposely loosened up my curls to show you how I would fix this. When doing that assessment, you might find that you actually need multiple things, which is completely normal. So I need water to reactivate the curl shape. I also need some styling to encourage that shape to come back, and I need more hold, so I need to add in a gel. So for the gel, I'm going to use this one from Jessicurl. It's a lightweight stronghold gel. It's called their Spiralicious styling gel. It comes in fragrance free. I'm going to section my hair off because, as I mentioned, I might not need as much of that curl enhancing on the lower part, so that area might not need as much water, whereas the top definitely needs more water. So I did that on purpose to where I loosened up the top section more, so that way I could show you all some different options based on different scenarios you might be dealing with. So now I can just focus on the lower section, which has a little bit more of a curl pattern to it. So I'm going to need to add water because water resets our curl shape. We have different bonds in our hair, and hydrogen bonds are temporarily broken when our hair gets wet, and then they reform when it dries, and that's what actually creates our curl pattern and holds it in place. So you have to re-wet it to get that curl shape to come back, but you want to avoid completely saturating your head. So what I'm going to do is just start misting this with water. Another option you could try is using steam. Some people like to use like a facial steamer, something that's not hot, or they make hair steamers to just infuse some moisture back into your hair. That is one way to go about it. If I was at the sink, I would just have wet hands and I would just kind of smooth over it like this. And I know you might be thinking, if I smoothed over my hair, it would just pull out my waves and curls. But that's okay. We're going to bring them back with some styling and with diffusing. That's going to be key. We have to kind of smooth down the frizz if we have frizz, and then you'll use your diffuser to get that curl shape to come back. So don't worry about like pulling out the curls or waves right now, because if I just spray this down and then just scrunch, I'm probably going to cause frizz. Now, unless if you don't struggle with frizz, then you could do that. But look. I don't know if the camera's picking it up, but see all that frizz that just popped out from just scrunching in some water? So I need to smooth. So I can just pick up the whole section, smooth it down, and that's also kind of reclumping things. So it's kind of smushing that frizz back into curl families, which helps keep it defined and less frizzy. Just adding a little bit more. And it's crazy how you can see the curl pattern just coming right back to life with a little bit of water. So far I haven't added any more product. So this is what you would want to do if you know that you had enough hold on wash day and you just need to kind of reactivate that. You can just use a little bit of water. If you feel any tangles, you can kind of pick up the tangly area and then detangle it a little bit with your hands, but you want to avoid like raking through your entire head. Again, we're minimizing the amount of manipulation in our hair. And then if it's stringy or if it's not like regrouping, you can do the praying hands technique, which is just where you kind of mash your hair back together with your palms. So if I can feel a cast starting to return, then I'm good to go and I can finish refreshing and not add any product and just go straight to diffusing. If I do need more product, I could go in with the same product that I use on wash day if that gave me, at least a medium hold. But this didn't give me enough hold at all, so even if I add this, it's not going to last. My hair is going to get frizzy by the time it even dries, so I don't want to add more of this because unfortunately it didn't have enough hold. So I'm going to go in with the Jessicurl gel. This is a stronger hold gel, but I don't want to add too much. So I'm just going to use probably about a pea-size amount, and I'm going to add some water even to dilute it just a little bit because we want to avoid layering on a bunch of product on a refresh day because that can cause like a build-up producty feeling. One other thing to note about your hair straightening out, if you know that you actually do have more of a natural tighter curl pattern and it's not returning no matter how much styling you do, then it could be a sign that you need a little bit more protein or that you have some buildup in your hair. Both of those things can contribute to your hair not having its normal bounce and elasticity to it. So you might need to do a protein deep conditioner on your next wash day. You might need to do a bond treatment in your hair, or you could just have buildup. So my hair is barely even wet. It's probably going to air dry by the time I get done with the top section. So I'll just show you how the back looks. It's barely even wet. It's just a little bit damp, which is what we want. Popping in to clarify that refreshing should only be taking you 5 minutes, 10 minutes max. It's taking me longer here, obviously, because I'm doing a lot of explaining. If your scalp is dirty and you're having to do a major refresh too, it's better to just wash your hair. But I'm just demonstrating different scenarios for you all here. So I'm just going to clip this back, that way I don't keep messing it up as I'm refreshing the rest of my hair. So this is the section that is much more stretched, so I'm probably going to need a little bit more water. I might even section this off even more. Let's section it down this way this time. Do a little bit more defining here on the front section and less in the back. So this is kind of like the middle section that has a little bit of curl, but it's definitely stretched out, so I'm going to mist it with some water. So now I'm going in with more of that Jessicurl gel, which has pretty good slip to it as well, so I can kind of smooth out my hair without it kind of dragging and snagging because it does have some slip, which is that slippery, kind of soft feeling when you apply it. So I'm just kind of smoothing over some of that frizz. So this is probably the worst part of what I'm dealing with. I'm definitely going to add a little bit more water up here, and you will just see the curl pattern start to return. And just add as much as you feel like you need to get enough of a curl pattern back. But again, you don't want to saturate your hair. Like, I'm not wetting it all the way down to the roots. I don't recommend getting in the shower and wetting your hair or adding conditioner. That's way too much. Just enough to where you can get enough of your wave pattern back or your curls back to where you feel happy about it. And that's one of those things that you'll have to kind of start to adjust to get used to just a looser look throughout the week. That way we're doing less manipulation, because that's the whole thing here. We don't want to over manipulate our hair and cause further damage. Now you might be wondering, why didn't I just go in with the foam to try and bring back the curls? And I could, and there's a lot of water in this foam, so that would kind of be doing the same thing. But I don't really need to layer on a bunch of this product. It doesn't give me enough hold anyways, so I don't want to just cake on more product. Instead, I'm just doing a light layer of what's actually going to help me here. So a little bit of that Spiralicious gel, diluting it with water so I'm not applying too much. And you can already see the curl pattern returning here. I'm just going to smooth over some frizz. And if you're worried about kind of pulling out your waves, you could just kind of gently like rope in the gel like this and then scrunch. But if I don't do any smoothing for my curlier hair, it is going to frizz up if I just scrunch. Or I could just do praying hands, and we'll just scrunch at the end to get that to return. So I want to show you a couple of techniques that you can use to get some of that wave and curl pattern back. So you'll need to kind of do some styling to enhance them to return if scrunching alone is not working. You could do finger coiling. So to do that, you'll want to kind of just smooth out that piece first. I would only focus on problem areas or maybe areas around your face that are going to bother you if you want to fully redefine them, but not do your whole head by any means. So smooth it out first, and then try and look at which direction the wave pattern or curl pattern is going in. I know that's really hard to tell, especially if it's not a very tight pattern. So if it's looser, you might have to just try a couple of different directions. So you could just kind of spin it or kind of like whip it around to get it to start to spiral. You might need to go in both directions. And that's just encouraging it to kind of take some turns and not be so stretched out. Or you can kind of shake it to get it to come back. Or you could do full-on finger coiling, which is where you start at the top. I might actually need a little bit more gel on my hands. Your fingertips need to have some slip to them for this to work. But your hair doesn't have to be soaked, it just needs to be damp. And I'm starting right here at the root, and I'm wrapping the hair around my finger once. And then as I kind of slide down, I'm just spinning it around my finger. It's dragging a little bit because it's not super wet. If it's not working too well or kind of dragging, you can kind of hold it mid-shaft and then do that. And that's just helping it actually take its spiral. So see how much more that spiraled with finger coiling? Because my curl pattern was just kind of being stretched out before and didn't know which way that it wanted to go. It was pulling out that hair that didn't belong in that curl family. So now you can see it's actually taking more of an even spiral. Now my hair obviously has some spiral to it, so if your hair was more wavy, you would just start to see your natural wave pattern come back. So that is just one technique. Another option would be to use a brush. This is more so beneficial if you want to smooth out some frizz. So I could take my brush, place it right at the root, and then kind of glide down. Sometimes I do still have to finger coil to kind of get some of that curl to come back. It's a little too much in one section. But again, I don't want you brush styling your whole head on a refresh day. That's definitely too much. But for those stubborn areas, you might need to try that. I need a little bit more gel in this section where I have a lot of frizzy grays. And I'm not going to use any brush or finger coiling. I'm just going to kind of smooth out some of that frizz at the root. And then let's just kind of shake it to get those to come back. Maybe coil it a little bit. So now we've got some loose curls. So this curl for me is actually more of a loose wave, but even with finger coiling it, it does still enhance it. So it's a looser wave, but it actually does get the pattern to come back. And sometimes if I kind of break up the curl clump and make it smaller, then do it, it doesn't have as much weight on it, so now it actually can spiral. See the difference? So again, these are not techniques that I would spend time doing my entire head, but for any of those problem areas or those areas in your face that are showing that's where you'll definitely want to try some of those if you do want to try and bring back your curl pattern. Now let me go back to this side. It's already starting to dry. Again, I didn't even use that much water, but we are going to need some water to reactivate those stretched out pieces. Going in with a little bit of that gel, adding water to my palm. I think praying hands is going to be the easiest technique for those of you with loose curls and waves to get some clumping and smoothed out some frizz without needing to finger coil or brush style. And then scrunch to get it to come back up. Now I am hearing a little bit of a squishy sound here because I did go in with a little bit more water, so that's probably too much for what I needed. Usually I don't hear that sound when I'm refreshing. Usually it's just damp. Like this side only has a little bit of that and it's already starting to dry, so that's a good amount of water. This is probably too much water. So you would want to avoid having that much in your hair on a refresh because that's just going to take a while to dry. All right, now I'm going to bring all of those layers back together. I'm just going to reach underneath and kind of shake out the roots a little bit. And even though it looks like I did a lot of styling, I actually didn't. It's not super wet. I didn't restyle my entire head. I know a lot of you might be thinking that of why wouldn't you just wash? But washing is going to create even more of that stress on the hair, more manipulation. It's going to take longer for the hair to dry when it is saturated down to the scalp. So if I don't necessarily need to wash yet, a refresh is still saving me some time to just do some touch-ups like that. And I could have even just maybe refreshed the top section and not worried about the bottom as much. So there's ways to still make it quick, to make it still worth it versus doing an entire wash day routine, if your scalp is still clear. Now obviously if your scalp is dirty, then definitely go ahead and just wash your hair. Now, if you didn't section your hair off and you just wanted to do a really quick refresh, you could just mist down all of your hair. Then just take some of that gel. So pretend I didn't just do all of that. If I was starting off with my hair being dry still, I would mist it down, take some gel mixed with water, and then just kind of praying hands over the entire side. Then for the other side, I would just kind of wet it down like this, and then add a little bit more gel. You can also do this if you've already styled like me and you're seeing some stringiness. This is a great way to kind of fix it. And then just do the praying hands like that. And then scrunch. If your hair is very short and you're not able to do the praying hands technique, what you could do is pick up an area that's looking loose or just find a part of your hair. So pretend this hair was short. I would just kind of mist it, and then you could kind of take your hands and kind of smooth over it, either with 2 fingers to try and smooth it, same effect, or you could kind of just smooth it like this. So here I'm just using my thumb and my first finger to kind of smooth some of that frizz in, and then I would finger coil. So that's if you don't have long enough hair to be able to lean to the side and go in with your full palms. I would use your fingers to kind of smush the hair together. If you need to refresh your roots, or if they're very oily, you could use a dry shampoo. This is a foaming dry shampoo from Boucleme. I can link this for you down below, but this is one of the few dry shampoos that is a water-based formula, so it's a foam, not like a typical aerosol dry shampoo, and that can be better for naturally curly hair, especially when you want to create more of that curl enhancement at the root if your roots have gotten really stretched out. Or maybe if your roots are overly soft, adding in some sort of texturizing product like this can help with those overly soft roots that are falling. So I'm just going to use a small pump of this. Typically, I would do this before I refresh my hair. That way I can fix any frizz that I create kind of from roughing up my roots. So just pretend I'm doing this before I even started refreshing. But what you want to do is just kind of press that into your root area, and you can get this on the scalp. It actually feels really nice and refreshing. So now I'm done with the refresh and I'm ready to diffuse, but just to show you, my hair is not even that wet. Like, the roots are definitely not wet, it's just damp, and diffusing is only going to take a couple of minutes. Now I'm diffusing with my Curlsmith Defrizzion hair dryer. I highly recommend diffusing over air drying on a refresh day, especially if you're dealing with limp and loosened curls and waves, because that heat is going to set that curl and wave pattern back into place and help to lock it in. The heat is going to help set those hydrogen bonds that we talked about in our hair that are responsible for our hair shape. So if you are currently air drying and you're noticing that your curls and waves are just falling right after you refresh, or they're still not lasting, it's likely due to air drying. Air drying also has gravity at play, so your hair is starting to elongate as it's in that drying process, whereas with diffusing, especially when you are scrunch diffusing, which is similar to regular scrunching but with your diffuser bowl, that is locking in the curls in that shape. So it's helping to lock in that definition and that wave pattern back into place. So highly recommend diffusing on a refresh day if you haven't tried already. And I will share with you some tips in just a second on how to keep it quick so that way you're not spending a ton of time on your refresh days. Now my hair is dry. It took a little bit longer to dry this area where I added a little bit more water. So the more water you add, the longer it's going to take to dry, which is why I mentioned ideally you're not adding that much water at all, just enough to where it's a little damp. I would start small with the water and see how much of your curl and wave pattern returns, and then you can always add a little more if needed, but you don't want to completely saturate it all at first if not needed, because then it's just going to take longer to dry. So that took me about 5 to 6 minutes to diffuse. It shouldn't take that long, but diffusing, as I mentioned, is critical to really set that shape to where it will last, or else it's just going to fall again by the time it air dries. So for me, that is completely worth it, and I wouldn't necessarily do a full refresh every day, so it's not like I'm fully diffusing my hair every day. Now, typically when I do a light refresh, I can diffuse for just like a minute to 2 minutes max, and that's good enough because I'm not soaking my hair. Another thing you could do is diffuse for just a few minutes and then finish air drying, just enough to get your curl shape and wave shape set. So all in all, this type of refresh is a little bit more of a refresh than I would typically do, at least for my hair type. Ideally, you're not spending that much time on your hair on a refresh, but I do totally understand where those who struggle with their hair completely kind of falling out do need a little bit more of that refresh to get the wave and curl pattern to return, or you just do different hairstyles and things to just deal with how that is looser throughout the week until your next wash day. So it's all in what you feel comfortable with wearing. You don't necessarily have to refresh just because your waves and curls have loosened up. So I just wanted to quickly touch on how you could add even more hold to this. So I actually didn't get much of a cast at all. Even though this is typically a stronghold gel for me, I think it's because I have this underneath. So the more moisturizing products that we have on underneath of our stronghold gel, it's going to soften our hold. So if I were to have applied this on wash day as my main styler without anything underneath and applied it very thoroughly, it would have given me a pretty strong hold and I would have a cast right now. So that's why I don't have a hard cast. You could go in with a hairspray, which is a great finishing option for people's hair that's overly soft and silky and kind of falls, because hairspray does the opposite of that. It creates that texture and grit, it gives you hold, it's very lightweight, and it's going to help the waves and curls stay. So I don't like to spray it too close. I sort of just kind of mist it all over, or I will kind of lift it up and mist a little bit to give my roots some more hold and lift, just like we did with that dry shampoo. So you can do that, or you can kind of just spray it all over at a distance. Then I'm just kind of tucking in that frizz that I'm seeing. That's the best way to kind of hide it. You need to kind of fix the frizz with your hands as you're spraying that hairspray, because hairspray will just lock the hairs in place as they are. So if you just spray frizz and don't touch it, you're still gonna have frizz. Then I'm just going to fluff out the roots. If I did have a cast in my hair, I would totally go and scrunch it out now, or leave it in if you want it to last even longer. It is going to naturally fall throughout the day. That's totally normal, but sometimes I'll just go back in and fluff throughout the day, or I'll just let it fall, because that's sometimes what curls are just going to do. Now let's talk about sleep protection and preserving your loose curls and waves. So this is really going to be key in preventing you from having to do a lot of refreshing. The first option I think everyone should have, that is a silk or a satin pillowcase. So this is highly recommended because regular cotton puts a lot of friction on our hair, and the more friction, the more the curls and waves are going to loosen up. So if anything, you can just drape your hair over your silk pillowcase, just put it up, that way you're not sleeping directly on it. That's probably the easiest way for a lot of people who just struggle with all other sleep protection methods. You still are kind of rolling around on your hair a little bit, but at least it's against that silk or satin material that's slippery and won't cause frizz and breakage and damage to your hair. You can also try a loose scrunchie with the pineapple hairstyle. That's basically where you gather all of your hair up on top of your head. This method can stretch out the curls because you are pulling hair from underneath up to the top. You're also pulling the front section back, and all of that is inevitably going to stretch out your curls and waves, especially at the roots. But this method is very popular and works for a lot of people. You just might have to reactivate some of your waves and curls at the root if you do want to try and get some of that curl pattern back, or just rock a looser look like I mentioned. Some other ways you could maybe counteract this is using multiple scrunchies. So maybe you place your hair in a scrunchie like right here at the bottom and then do the top. That way you're not stretching the bottom all the way up to the top. Another option is a buff or a scarf. A buff is basically a tube that's open on top. This is very similar to tying your hair up in a scarf, and the main premise of this is basically your ends are out. So this can help prevent a lot of misshaped, wonky curls and waves because you're not really placing the hair, you're just letting the hair kind of flop forward, and it's still covered around the back where you're sleeping on it, so that can help prevent some of those misshapen curls. So that's definitely a great option for wavy and loose curls. You can also use a bonnet, which is my preferred method, but I know a lot of people with wavy hair don't always have the best luck with the bonnet, and that is because the curls might be getting misshaped or they might be falling down inside of the bonnet. You have to pay really close attention to the way that the hair is getting placed inside of whatever covering you are using, or else they are going to get kind of bent and misshapen. If you want to see how I put on my bonnet to prevent my curls from getting misshaped, you can check out a video I have on that, link down below. Just like with styling products, there is going to be some trial and error here, so you might have to try different sleep protection methods until you find the right one that works for you. If you've tried all of these tips and you're still not getting much longevity out of your waves and curls, then I would love to coach you through my group coaching membership, which is now open for enrollment. Enrollment is only going to be happening a couple times a year, and it's currently open through the end of March 2025. So I will have the link down below if you want to check out my group coaching membership plans. If you want to join me for the upcoming spring program, we're going to be talking all about some common struggles with curly and wavy hair. I'm going to help you problem solve, learn more about your hair, and give you that personalized advice in the group coaching setting where you get tons of support from the other community members. And if you have wavy hair, I would love to hear from you what your specific struggles are. Leave them in the comments down below, and you can always leave me requests for upcoming videos as part of this series. And if you didn't already catch the last video in this wavy hair series, it's all about styling curly versus wavy hair. So I will have that video linked right here on the screen. Make sure you check it out if you want to see specific styling techniques for achieving better wave definition and more longevity. So I will talk to you over there. Bye everyone.